I think we all can agree that Edison has one of the weirdest designs in the Fate series. I don't like it. And after seeing Olga Marie's old ridiculous design, I still don't like it. Of course, it's subjective. Maybe you're one of the people who actually think he looks cool. If that's your taste, well, fair enough, okay. But I've always wondered how the illustrator ended up making this design. A lion head, a skin-tight blue suit, wings, a giant projector on his chest. All those random decorations. Like, what happened here? The biggest mystery is the lion head. Fate never actually explained why Edison has a lion head instead of, his actual head. The only explanation we get is that his Saint graph is unusual because he's merged with every US president. Maybe the lion symbolizes absolute authority or kingship. I mean, the guy literally calls himself the President King or Presi King. But after thinking about it for a while, digging through history, reading old documents and going back through the game, I feel like we can actually make sense his design. First, let's look at what Edison actually did in real life. In this context, he's famous as one of the major pioneers of early motion pictures technology. Although there is an important distinction, Edison financed, patented, promoted, and directed the projects, while much of the engineering was done by his employee, William Kennedy Lowry Dixon. Together, they developed things like the kinetograph, the kinetoscope, and the Black Maria Studio, along with several other inventions. Those are the ones we are focusing on today. Now look closely at Edison's servant's design. His chest is literally a movie projector. His wings are made out of film reels. Those aren't random decorations, like they're references to his contribution to early cinema, or at least I think that it is. The film reels represent the kinetograph. The projector obviously references movie projection and the optical technology behind his invention. Then there is the lion head. The most famous lion in film history is the roaring lion logo of MGM. It debuted in 1916, long after Edison had already helped establish the motion picture industry. Historically, Edison has absolutely no connection to MGM's lion, but I can definitely imagine the illustrator borrowing that iconic symbol of cinema and attaching it to one of the industry's founding figures. It's not historically accurate, but artistically, I can see the logic. Now, what about the dark blue bodysuit though? Honestly, I've got two guesses. The first is that it meant to represent the color of the American flag, since Edison also embodies every US president. The second idea is a bit more of a stretch. Maybe it's inspired by the Black Mario Studio, which was literally painted black. Obviously, dressing him in a completely black bodysuit wouldn't look very appealing, so maybe they changed it into dark blue instead. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it, I don't know. But that's exactly what this video is about. This isn't me trying to criticize another bad Fate design. It's me trying to find some peace of mind to make these designs actually make sense. A servant's design is usually the very first thing that makes people interested in them, right? Even before their personality or their role in the story. So you would expect every design choice to have some connection to the character's history or legend. In real life, we do this all the time. If you see someone wearing a jacket, you assume they're cold, right? There's a story there. If someone is wearing a suit, you assume they're on important business. And if you see a guy in a blue bodysuit sprinting down the highway with a giant spears, you would probably think that's a fish-loving ancient Celtic warrior chasing a serial killer, where the losers get their heart ripped out. Okay, I'm only half joking. But that one actually has historical reason. Celtic warriors were often described as painting themselves blue before battle. See, the design has a reason. So let's try doing the same thing with some Fate's more questionable character design. And hopefully by the end of the video, we can all make peace with them. Now let's go back to Edison for a second because I'm still not done talking about the lion head. You know, the MGM lion connection is probably the very first thing most people notice. It's an obvious visual reference, and I do think the illustrator intentionally played with that idea. But I don't think that's the whole story. Like, there is more. And here's what I think. There is one incredibly strange detail that almost everyone, including Fate itself, the story itself, seems to have forgotten. Back in the American Singularity, Edison mentioned that he possessed an elixir that allows him to completely transform into a beastly form called Thomas Mazda Edison. Karna immediately stops him from drinking it, and that's it. It's mentioned exactly once, never shown, never explained, and never brought up again. Honestly, it feels like the writer originally had bigger plans for it, but either ran out of time or decided to cut it. The idea was left in the script, but the payoff never happened. If that's true, then maybe Edison's lion head isn't just a random artistic choice. It's not just MGM lion, maybe it's actually a remnant of that abandoned concept. Instead of showing the full transformation, the writers left him halfway there, a human body with the head of a beast. Now here's where things get even more interesting. You see, the name Mazda isn't random. Historically, Ahura Mazda is the supreme deity in Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion founded by Zoroaster. Ahura Mazda is the god of wisdom, truth, and most importantly for this discussion, light. He is often portrayed as the force opposing darkness and evil, with his eternal rival being Angra Mainyu, better known as Ahriman. Now, think about Edison. It's stated that even though he is far from the person he was when he was alive, he is still incredibly intelligent. Because he is merged with every US president, he is also portrayed as being far wiser than any normal human. Combine that with his association with the electric light bulb and his pioneering work in early cinema, and I think it's fair to say that the writers may have intended to draw parallels between Edison and Ahura Mazda. I mean, now that I look at it like this, even their general appearance is surprisingly similar. Ahura Mazda is commonly depicted as an old bearded figure with wings, while Edison has a massive build, a thick mane that resembles a beard, and mechanical wings. They're obviously not identical by any means, but I can definitely see the inspiration. Another reason I think this theory has some weight is because of Edison's rivalry with Tesla. Throughout the story, or even in real life, Tesla is constantly associated with Zeus, the Greek god of lightning. In fact, he is literally referred to as the second coming of Zeus, and his abilities revolve around electricity, so you can already see the parallel. On one side, you have Tesla inheriting the symbolism of the Greek god of lightning. On the other, you have Edison, whose name is literally tied to Mazda, the god of light. It almost feels like fate wanted to portray these two legendary inventors as inheriting the symbolic power of a rival divine figures, while also reflecting their real-life rivalry. Of course, this is just a theory, but considering Fate's habit of blending history, mythology, symbolism, and wordplay into a single character, I honestly think it fits surprisingly well. Now, enough about Edison. If you have your own theories, feel free to leave them in the comments. Now let's move on to another. Let's just say this is gonna be controversial. Yeah, I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this, but Ushiwakamaru. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? I think Ushi is adorable. I love her personality. But her armor is just... yeah, I just can't get behind it. She's wearing armor that's so open it exposed half her body, and sometimes I can't stop wondering how she's fighting without, everything just flipping up. It just feels out of place. I know, some of you are already typing your comments like, oh, it's just a story, you're just uncomfortable with it, and honestly, sometimes I don't mind it. Zenobia is a good example. Her design has a theme behind it, so I can accept it. But if you're wearing armor, then shouldn't it actually protect you? Like, show us that the armor is supposed to protect you. So how do we make sense of Ushiwakamaru's design? Well, the easiest answer is probably fan service. In fact, we've heard from Fate staff over the years that making characters visually appealing has always been part of the design philosophy. So yes, that's almost certainly one reason, but that's not a very interesting answer, isn't it? So let's see if history gives us something more. Historically, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, the real Ushiwakamaru, would have fought wearing the standard armor of a late Heian period samurai, most notably the O-Yoroi. It's literally just translated as armor. It protected the chest, shoulders, arm, and thighs, while also still allowing enough mobility for mounted combat and archery. And honestly, if you look at the picture of an O-Yoroi, it actually resembles the overall silhouette of Ushi's armor. It's almost as if the illustrator started with a real-life suit of armor and then removed half of it. So why would they do that? I think the answer goes back to the legend that made Yoshitsune famous, which is the Battle of Dan no Ura. This is the battle where Yoshitsune or Ushiwakamaru became legendary for her incredible agility, with later stories claiming she leaped from boat to boat during the naval battle. It's also the very scene fate turns into her noble phantasm, Dan no Ura Hasotobi, literally recreating those impossible jumps across the battlefield. And here is where my theory comes in. You see, there are a lot of different interpretations of Yoshitsune's action in real-life legend, but the most famous one comes from the tale of the Heike. In the story, Noritsune, the enemy, finally catches up to Yoshitsune's boat. To escape him, Yoshitsune leaps into a nearby ship, narrowly avoiding capture, and Noritsune fails to catch him. And over time, that moment evolved into the famous legend known as the 8-boat leap, or Hasotobi. So that's the origin of Ushiwakamaru's noble phantasm. No mystery there, it's pretty straightforward. So then, where does the revealing armor come from? Well, this is where things get interesting. You see, across various sources, songs, artwork, legends, and even games, it's often said that Noritsune was desperately trying to keep up with Yoshitsune's incredible speed. To move faster, he began removing part of his armor. Some versions say he tore off his sleeve, threw away his helmet, and discarded everything that slowed him down. And he still couldn't catch Yoshitsune. So, ironically, the person who actually ended up wearing less armor wasn't Yoshitsune, it was Noritsune, the enemy. So then, why is Ushi or Yoshitsune the one wearing this kind of armor? Well, I have two answers. First, and this is my main theory, it's because in fate, legends often become reality. Things that were only myth or exaggerated stories in our history are sometimes treated as events that literally happen in the Nasuverse. So, if Ushiwakamaru really did leap across 8 boats, not exaggerated, it would make sense for her to remove as much armor as possible to stay agile. Heavy armor would only get in the way. And my second reason is that there isn't just one version of the legend. Some later retellings actually depict Yoshitsune as the one who discarded the parts of his armor while being chased or while fighting across the boat to increase his agility. Other versions instead give that role to Noritsune. So depending on which versions Fate choose to draw inspiration from, having Yoshitsune wear lighter, more revealing armor isn't completely out of nowhere. And if that's the idea the artists were going for, then another detail suddenly starts making sense. One or two of Ushiwakamaru's ascensions have noticeably asymmetrical armor. At first, it just looks like a stylistic choice. But after understanding the story and the legend, those missing pieces seem to represent armor that was hastily removed or simply left behind in the middle of, a desperate escape. Remember, Yoshitsune was running for his life while Noritsune was right behind him. So this is like a little snippet of just how desperate she was during the fight. It's kind of fun discovering little details like this. Is any of this already confirmed though? No. The real answer is probably still inside Nasu's and Takeuchi's head. But compared to simply saying they just wanted fan service, I think this is much more satisfying way to interpret the design. Now, I actually wanted to include more characters like Caesar and Jack, but we're already getting close to 15 minutes and I don't want to bore you guys, so I guess that'll have to wait until next time. If you enjoyed the video, share it somewhere, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.